Welcome to this week's episode of Strong and Sculpted, the podcast by The Sculpted Vegan about all things strong and all things sculpted. And as you know, this podcast isn't just about being strong, i.e. physically in body, or sculpted physically in body. It's also about being strong in whatever way that means for you. So that could be emotionally, it could be physically strong, or it could be in thought, it could be spiritually strong. And so today I want to talk about something which is kind of close to my heart because it's something that, I have done very, very well. And it's something that I get asked a lot, which is about how I built my business, how I built my online fitness business. So we do have a question, which I'm going to read out to you, which has inspired today's podcast. A really, really good question. And I'm going to kind of really dive deep into this question and the different strategies around it and what my best advice would be for this person. Now, as usual, it's always worth saying that everything I talk about in this podcast is my opinion, usually backed up by an awful lot of research and experience, but it is my opinion. So if you disagree with it, that's fine, but feel free just to move on if you disagree, because I do get a lot of flack because I have very, very strong opinions. But what I have to remind people of is they're just my opinions. You don't have to take what I say as gospel. I'm just sharing what has worked for me, and you can take what works for you and leave the rest. So let's get started. Today's question is from Cindy, and Cindy says, what is your top advice for a newly qualified PT, personal trainer, looking to build a business and confidence? So I really love this question, and I wasn't sure if Cindy was referring to confidence as in confidence in herself, confidence in what she was doing, or confidence in business. So I'm going to address confidence in two different ways so that I cover both areas and I make sure that she definitely gets her answer. So let me tell you a story to begin with. Whenever I first started teaching yoga, now, many people don't know that I'm actually a yoga teacher. I was a yoga teacher long before I was a bodybuilder. And I didn't even start as a yoga teacher. I just started out as a yogi. So whenever I discovered yoga, I discovered Ashtanga yoga. And I'm a real type A. So I love power yoga. So I started practicing Ashtanga yoga, and I really just, discovered a love of yoga, and I loved how it made me feel, and I loved how flexible I was. I loved how strong I was. So I started to practice Ashtanga yoga several days a week. And then, of course, several days led to every day, and then sometimes twice a day. And I really, really got very deep into the practice of yoga. And I'm a real kind of OCD kind of person. Whenever I love something, I dive deep into it. So I was reading books on yoga, and I was, there's a book called The Science of Yoga, which is absolutely amazing if you're a yogi or yoga teacher. And so I then also discovered online websites such as Yoga Glow, which I was a member of for many, many, many years. And I would have done online tutorials on back bends and handstands and inversions and splits and hip openers and anything at all that I was interested in, especially the things that I wasn't strong in, the things that I was quite weak in. I would have really made it my mission to become better at those things and to figure out, how do you back bend? How are you supposed to move your body, and how are you supposed to, move your hips and the, the internal rotation of the thighs in order to open the sacrum to let the tailbone descend, and all of these, things. I didn't just want to go into a yoga class and back bend. I wanted to figure out, how does the body bend in that direction, and why is it even important to bend in that direction? So I got very, very deep into the practice of yoga. And then after I'd been practicing for about 6 years, people kept saying to me, because I would put my practices up on Facebook sometimes, and I would say, here's a little snippet from my personal practice. And I wasn't even on Instagram then, it was just Facebook. And people would say to me, you should become a yoga teacher. You should totally teach yoga. And I would say, no, I don't know. It takes too long, and it's too, I would need to go to Bali, or, it's just a long time. People are like, no, seriously, you really don't. And so one day I thought, you know what? I actually do want to teach yoga, and I think that would be a really good thing for me to do. So I thought, but I bet you any money there's a way I can do my teacher training very, expediently, and I can do it quickly. So I looked online, and I found a company online that was a teacher training for yoga teachers. And or for yogis who wanted to be yoga teachers. And I realized I could do my training online. So I did my teacher certificate online. I did it in about 3 months. It was a 200-hour teacher training. We had to submit all of our coursework and we had to submit videos of us teaching yoga. And I got my training online, which was perfect for me because I was a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids. And I didn't have time to, go off on a retreat or to spend a lot of weekends or whatever. I was able to learn at my own pace. And also, apart from that, I was extremely confident in yoga. So why am I talking about yoga here whenever this question is about a PT? Well, what I want to kind of hit home first of all is, in order to be rated as a good teacher in anything that you do, you first have to get really, really, really good at it yourself. The reason why whenever I first became a yoga teacher, was so confident as a teacher was because I had been practicing yoga for about 8 years and I had been practicing intensely. And not only that, I had built a very, very, very strong home practice. That's the difference between a yoga teacher who qualifies, who's only been going to yoga classes, and someone who's developed a home practice. Whenever you have a home practice, that is when you really learn about the different asanas, the different postures. That's really where you learn how to break things down, because a lot of your learning is very self-directed. So I became a very, very, very good yogi, practitioner of yoga, very, very knowledgeable. So whenever I did my teacher training and I first began to teach, I felt extremely confident to teach because I had felt all of these things in my body. I was an advanced practitioner of yoga. So therefore I could teach very simple yoga. I could even teach advanced yoga whenever I first qualified because I knew how to teach these things in my body. So it's the same with being a bodybuilder, or it's the same with being a PT. I am actually not a personal trainer. I have no qualifications in personal training. I've never ever trained anyone in the gym. I've never worked as a personal trainer, but I have worked as a yoga instructor. But why I feel confident to teach people through my online programs is because I have developed my own body. I am a professional athlete. I have stood on stage many, many times as a professional athlete. And so therefore I can teach based on experience. And a lot of people say to me, like, what makes a good teacher? Well, what makes a good teacher is someone who can teach based from experience. I mean, anybody can read a book on tennis, but that doesn't mean you're a good tennis player. Like, you cannot learn tennis from reading a book. The only way to learn tennis is to play tennis. That's the only way. And so you can't learn weight training through reading a book. You have to get into the gym and lift the weights. You can't learn yoga through reading a book. You have to get into the studio or onto the mat and practice yoga. So if you are going to become a PT, or you are going to become a yoga teacher, or a teacher in any profession, the first thing you have to do is to get really, really, really good at the profession yourself. You want to be someone who people look up to, right? You want to be someone who, it's like whenever you walk into a hairdresser, right? I don't know if it's the same for guys, but certainly for girls, whenever you walk into a hairdresser, the first thing you do is you look at all the people's hair who work in the hairdressers. Like, I don't know whether you do, but that's what I always did. Whenever I was younger, I used to look at their hair and think, do I want my hair like that? Do I want my hair like that? Oh, what's her color like? And it's very disappointing to walk into a hairdresser's and see a hairdresser with dirty hair, or hair just scraped back in a ponytail, or like they haven't made any effort. It's so important to have hair that represents, the company that you're working for, or if it's your own business. It's the same with being a PT. Drives me insane when I go into the gym and I see a fat PT. I'm sorry, but I'm like, you're gonna try and teach me how to have an incredible body, or how to build a great shoulders or great muscles or great whatever, and you are just fat. You look like shit, right? And there's a gym I was in the other week, and there was a PT walking around. I swear to God, he had a beer belly and he was training people. And I was like, are you shitting me? Like, you have a beer belly. How can you in your right mind stand up there and be kind of, the beacon of shining light for your clients and say, yeah, like if you train the way I train you, you look like me. So you have to be a representation of what you teach. Like, you don't have to be an advanced yoga practitioner to teach yoga, but you at least have to have a very good yoga practice. You don't have to, be able to do the splits or handstands or whatever, but you have to be able to do the yoga postures very, very well. Same with being a PT. You have to look the part. You have to look like you train, and you have to give your clients something to aspire to, because that builds confidence. And also, whenever you do that, whenever you really put yourself in that position and you put yourself on the line and you train hard, maybe you train for a show, or you train something, train for something bigger, you get the experience. And there's nothing like teaching from experience. If you can't teach from experience, you are lost. And unfortunately, you can only get experience by experimenting on yourself. Like, you are your best experiment. Experiment on yourself. Like, get the experience, and train with the best, look for the best trainers, put yourself on the line, put yourself in your client's position and think, well, how did you feel whenever you first found a PT or you first decided you wanted to train? So I think that a love of what you're doing has to come first. And if you truly love and are interested in what you do, then that will come across in every, to everyone that you teach, and that will come across in everything that you do. So that is the first thing I would say. Work on yourself first and be prepared to be patient. There's a lot of PTs who are just qualified or who are just qualifying and maybe they don't have the experience yet, but understand or at least commit to the fact that as you build your business and as you build your client base, you're going to have to keep working on yourself. It's not enough to just qualify as a PT and go, oh, well, that's great. Now I have the qualification and I can charge money and, and I can train people. If you stop working on yourself and you just start to train people, then you're just going to be stagnant. You're not going to keep learning and you're not going to keep growing. Whenever I started training in the gym, I started reading books on books after books after books. Here on my desk where I'm sitting now, I have books by Mike Mentzer. I have 2 books by Mike Mentzer. I have books by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I have books on high intensity training. I have books on nutrition. I have books on everything to do with bodybuilding because I just geek out on it. I geek out on how the muscle grows and how the internal body works and how fat is burned and everything about calories and macros because it's interesting to me because the more I know, the better I can teach. So the more you know, the more experience you have, the better you can teach. And people can smell a good teacher a mile off, and they can smell a bad teacher a mile off. And when you're a good teacher and you can really break things down into the smallest detail for people and explain the why behind what they're doing, the why behind which muscles they're using, the why behind, why they have to squeeze their shoulder blades together at the bottom of a lat pull down, people will truly respect you because you will demonstrate that you really, really know your stuff. And another thing that's important just to throw in there is that it's also important for you to admit when you don't know. I think that the sign of someone very experienced and someone who's committed to learning is to be able to say, actually, I don't know. I don't know the answer. There's a great story about the Dalai Lama once. There was a guy, Sir Ken Robinson, who has done several TED Talks, was talking about once he was at an event and the Dalai Lama was there and somebody in the audience asked a really profound question. And, the Dalai Lama, thought for a second and he, sat back and he stroked his chin. And then he leant forward into the microphone and everyone was waiting for this really profound thing that he was going to say. And he leant forward and he said, I don't know. And then he sat back. And Sir Ken Robinson was like, everyone was like, what do you mean you don't know? You're the Dalai Lama. Of course you know. And he said it taught him something in that moment that it's okay not to know. And if you don't know the answer, saying, you know what, I actually don't know the answer to that question. That's a great question, but I'm going to go and find out. So be humble as well as experienced and definitely don't be a know-it-all, but demonstrate that you are open, committed to learning and show it in your own body. Don't be a fat PT, okay? Seriously, it's not cool. It doesn't look good and you're never going to be successful. So the second thing that I want to talk about whenever, for a newly qualified PT looking to build a business. So that's the question today. What's my top advice for a newly qualified PT looking to build a business and confidence is pricing. So I see PTs or business people or anyone who exchanges their time for money make this mistake all the time, okay? And it all comes down to pricing. Now, I understand whenever you're newly qualified, and you're dying for clients and you really don't know your self-worth yet. You're just like, yeah, I'll do 20 quid an hour or 30 quid an hour. Yeah, don't worry. If you have to cancel, that's fine. And so, people are, saying, yeah, I'll come in at 6 o'clock on, Wednesday morning. And then 6 o'clock comes and they don't want to get out of bed. And you're standing there in the gym and they're messaging you going, yeah, I'm really sorry. My car broke down or just couldn't make it this morning. You're like, oh yeah, don't worry. That's fine. Cause you don't want to lose them as a client, right? You don't want them to say they're never coming back. So behind their back, you're going, yeah, you bastard. How dare you not show up? I got out of bed here. 5 o'clock in the morning and like in text, you're like, yeah, no problem at all. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. No problem at all. And really like you're giving them the finger behind their back. So I think that you have to know your own worth. And I think this is something that I see people make mistakes with all the time. They don't know their own worth. So whenever I first started teaching yoga, and like disclaimer here, I'm not a PT. I never have been. Yes, I own the world's largest vegan bodybuilding company, but we sell online programs and I sell the programs that work for me and that I have used to train my body to the shape that it's in now. So, but whenever I first started teaching yoga, I sat down. I never made the mistake that anyone made, which was exchanging time for money and saying, oh yeah, it's £30 an hour. But actually, that's not true. I did. So I'll tell you what I did first of all. Whenever I first qualified, my friend said to me, oh, is there any chance that you would come and teach me yoga? And could you come to my house? And I was like, yeah, of course. No problem at all. That's great. So I drove over to her house. It was about a 20-minute drive. And I did yoga for her. It was only supposed to be for an hour. But of course, I couldn't stop at an hour because I was so excited. So I went for like an hour and a half. And then, I drove home again. It was, another 20 minutes. And she gave me £30. And I remember driving home with that £30 in my hands. It was a £20 note and a £10 note. And I had that £30 in my hands. And I remember looking at it and looking at the clock and realizing I had been away for just shy of 2 hours. By the time I got home, it was probably going to be about 2 hours. And I looked at that £30 and I thought, that isn't £30 I've earned. That's £15 per hour. I've earned £30 for 2 hours work because it took me time to travel over there. But not only that, I had to spend money on petrol as well to drive over there. And I drove a big Jeep, so petrol wasn't cheap. And I in that instance, I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is not okay. I have to set my standards higher because I have 4 children. I'm leaving them to come and, and practice and teach here. And if I'm, at the time as well, I had to pay somebody to come and look after the kids while I went and taught. And that person was £10 an hour. So basically my net gain from driving to my friend's house to teach her yoga was £10. So I had earned £10 for 2 hours work. And I was like, no. This can't happen. This is definitely not okay. So I then messaged her and said, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be able to come to you again. If you want to teach yoga, if you want to practice yoga, you're going to have to come to me. So that taught me a very valuable lesson straight off. And I thought, I'm not going to exchange my time for money. So I sat down with my husband and I said, can you help me figure this out? Because I wasn't a great business person at all at the time. So I said, can you help me figure this out? And he said, yeah, sure. So I said, what am I going to charge here? Because I realized, I have 4 kids, right? So there's a downside for me. Every hour I spent away from my kids was 1 hour I was never going to get back again. And it was also an hour of childcare I was having to pay. So I had to really figure out what is going to make it worthwhile for me, because otherwise there's no point in me working. If I'm not earning enough to make it worthwhile, there's no point in me working. So I came from if I had started teaching yoga when I was like 19 or 20 and I had no kids and I had no responsibilities and I'm maybe living at home, it would have been a different story. I probably would have been happy to take the £30 and travel around the country. But there was I already had a huge cost, there was a huge opportunity cost for me to teach yoga. So I had to make sure that it was worth my while. So I worked out that I would charge £40 per hour, or I would charge, this was in the beginning, £200 for 5 sessions. And they had to be paid in advance, and that guaranteed the person the slot. So that meant then, and also it meant that if they didn't give me 24 hours to cancel, that I got to keep their money. So if they wanted to come just as a one-off session, it was £40, but there's nobody was going to pass up the opportunity to get the massive discount and get the 5 sessions for £200. So I put it out there and I very quickly filled up with clients, and that is what I charged. I charged £200 for 5 sessions. They were paid in advance. And if the person didn't show up or canceled at the last minute or was extremely late, then I still charged them. Like I didn't, and it was hard sometimes and they weren't happy about it. And they were like, oh, and you could tell they were, it was a couple of times, especially with friends, I was teaching friends, they were like pissed off that I was like, I'm really sorry, but if you can't come, I was like, it's fine. If you don't want to come, no problem at all. Like I knew I was still getting paid because they all paid me in advance. So I think that is a big mistake that I see people make, is that they charge, they allow people to pay them after the sessions. And I see very experienced PTs doing this. PTs who've been in the business for years and they're still running around chasing people for money after they've done the work. So the second thing that I want to advise you to do is never, ever, ever do the work before you've gotten paid. If you're allowing people to pay you at the end of the week for your sessions, you're doing yourself out of money. You have to get people to pay up front. If they pay up front, what you're basically saying to them is, I know what my time is worth. I know my time is worth X amount. And if you don't show up, then I'm going to keep your money, because that's money that I could have earned somewhere else. I could have put someone else into that slot and I could have earned the same amount of money. But now you haven't shown up and you've texted me 30 minutes beforehand, Now I'm out the money. And the problem as well is, you can say to people, oh, well, you still have to pay me for the session. And they may say, oh yeah, okay, no problem at all. And then the next time they come in, you're like, oh yeah, and you're chatting and you remember, okay, I really like this person. And they say, oh, sure, there's the money for that session. You go, oh, sure, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. And you let it go. But if it's in advance, you're much less likely to let it go because, you've felt or you remember the pain of them not showing up. So it's really important to charge in advance. Now then, of course, just one other thing I want to say about that is whenever I began to realize that it wasn't worth my time, like it still wasn't enough for me, I was like, you know what, £200 for 5 sessions, it's really, and it was good for cash flow because I was getting the money up front. But I was like, it's really not even worth my while. So I then increased, I thought I want to actually decrease the hours that I'm working. And so I increased my prices to £60 per hour or 300 for 5 sessions. So that was 50 sessions. No, hang on, it wasn't 60. What was it? Yeah, it was. It was either £60 an hour or it was 300 for 5 sessions. So then everybody paid the 300 for the 5 sessions. And so I kept increasing my prices and increasing my prices and increasing my prices. And eventually, and I hardly had anyone drop off. So eventually I was earning, 300 for 5 sessions and everyone was paying it. And I realized that I still wasn't working any less hours because I was such a good yoga teacher and I really took care of my people. And I made it such a beautiful experience when they came that everyone was happy to pay the extra money. So do you know what? I can't even remember now that I'm talking. I'm like, I can't do the maths in my head. It was like 5 6s or 30. Yes. Okay. So it was £50 and it was £60 or it was 300 for 5. So then one day I was standing and I thought, I was teaching yoga and I thought, you know what? There's got to be a way that I can earn more money, that I can bring my skill to more people. And I was teaching detox yoga at the time and people kept coming to me and they would say, oh my God, that detox yoga practice you did with me was amazing. Is there any way you can do that again? It was fantastic. And I actually have a company, I don't know whether you guys know or not, it's called theyogatox.com. I have an online yoga detox company, theyogatox.com, which developed from this idea. So one day I was thinking, and I thought, you know what? I could actually run workshops. So this is the next thing that, I'm going to back up a little bit and say, once you have, I'm going to back up, just for 2 seconds to say. So once you have maxed out the number of hours that you can exchange for your money, you need to start looking at ways that you can leverage your time better. So the mistake that I see with PTs is a lot of them start out exchanging, doing one-to-one, and they're charging after the fact. So they're saying, oh, it's £30 an hour. And then the person is paying them, at the end of the week, or sometimes they're not showing up because they don't have the money. And not only are you out the money for that session, but you're out the money that they owe you. And you're doing an awful lot of chasing. So, but let's say you get your business up and running like I did. So I was, I usually taught only 2 or 3 clients in the morning. And by the way, I was very strict with my sessions because I had 4 kids. So I used to say to people, you can have 9 a.m., you can have 10 or 10:30. I usually taught 2 yoga sessions per day. On a Wednesday, I taught 3. So I think another day I taught 3 as well. And sometimes on a Saturday morning I taught. So I would have said to them, yes, you can come for yoga, but you can only have 9 a.m. or 10:30. And people were like, oh, can you not do in the afternoon? No. Can you not do in the evening? No. And so I was really strict with my time. And there's this really funny thing that happens whenever you create scarcity. Like whenever you say, these are my boundaries and I know that I'm good enough to charge this and I'm good enough to uphold these, people have a massive amount of respect for you. Like you teach people how to treat you. And if you say, I'm only free in these times, like if you were to phone, like say you wanted to go and see a heart surgeon, right? Say you discovered you had something wrong with your heart, right? And you had to make an appointment for a heart surgeon. So say somebody said to you, oh, you should go and see this person like Joe Bloggs because he's the best heart surgeon ever in the world, right? So say you phoned Mr. Bloggs and Mr. Bloggs' secretary and you said, I want to make an appointment to see Mr. Bloggs. Now imagine if his secretary said to you, oh yeah, sure, no problem. When would you like to come? And you'd be like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, when's he free? Well, he's free. Like, he can fit you in tomorrow, or he can fit you in on Wednesday, or he can fit you in on Thursday or Friday. You'd be like, oh, okay, this is great. Yeah, I'll come on Tuesday. And you're thinking, I wonder is Mr. Bloggs actually very good? Because if you're very good, you're normally booked up weeks in advance, right? So in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I wonder, is Mr. Blogs as good as people say that he is? Because if he was that good, surely he wouldn't be quite so available. Now, imagine if you phoned Mr. Blogs and his secretary said, oh, yes, you would like to make an appointment. No problem at all. And say it's the, 30th of September. And she says to you, I can give you an appointment on the 4th of January. You'd be like, what? WTF? Like, are the 4th of January? She'd be like, well, I can put you on a cancellation list if you like, but the first available appointment is the 4th of January. You'd be like, holy crap-a-moly, this guy must be fucking awesome. So, and imagine if she said then, yes, he can see you on the 4th of January and it'll be £1,500 for your first consultation. Like, what would you think in your mind? Now, you may think, okay, that's absolutely crazy. There's probably someone else who can fix my heart. Okay, so you may walk away and say, I can't wait that long and I can't pay that much. But wouldn't you tell all your friends, this guy, Mr. Blogs, he must be absolutely fucking epic because he charges £1,500 for a consultation and his first appointment was 3 months away. Do you think you have a higher perception of Mr. Blogs or do you think you have a lower perception of him? Right? You have a higher perception of him because A, he's scarce, like he's so in demand that he's scarce, and B, he's bloody expensive. We as human beings, we equate cost to value. So the higher cost you are, the more valuable people perceive you to be. Do you know, before I finished teaching yoga, and I'll tell you how I got to this price in a second, but before I finished teaching yoga, whenever I still took one-on-one clients, it became so invaluable to me to have a one-on-one client. Like for someone to come and book a private yoga session with me, I used to charge £150 an hour, right? That is, with today's exchange rate, it's about $200, right? $200 an hour or £150 an hour. That's what I used to charge. And people used to, message me and say, oh, I'd love to book in for private yoga. And I used to say, yeah, no problem. I can only fit you in on Wednesday, the 4th of July. And this would be like the start of June. And I'd say, and the cost is £150. And they'd be like, £150? And I'd be like, mm-hmm. And they'd be like, really? Uh-huh. And sometimes they'd say, oh, right, okay, sorry, that's too expensive for me. But you know what would happen? Most of the times they would book in with me, probably more out of curiosity than anything else. And truly, I knew that I was that good. And they came here to my room and I had, cashmere blankets that I used to cover them with during Shavasana. I did, I learned Thai yoga massage in America, as you guys call it. And I used to massage their heads. I used to move their bodies. I learned all different yoga techniques, which made me a really good teacher. I had a fridge with, chilled Evian and chilled coconut water. And I had, fresh, homemade kombucha for them to drink after their practice. And I have yoga silks in here. So I went the extra mile, right? And that's why I could charge so much. But also that's how much my time became worth. Like I began to value my time so much that if somebody wanted me to teach them privately, it was going to cost $150. So how did I get there? Okay. How did I get from charging, £30 an hour in the beginning to jumping to $150? Well, what I did was I began to look at ways that I could leverage my time better. So what do I mean by leverage? Well, leverage is where you can get more for less. So it's where you would possibly, like as a PT, if you train one person, you can earn £30 an hour. If you train two people in that 1 hour, you can charge £50. So they pay 25 each, or you can charge 40 and they pay 20 each. So you can earn more for that 1 hour's work if you teach two people. If you have three people come and train together, you can charge them 60 for that 1 hour. So rather than earning £30 for that 1 hour where you're exchanging 1-to-1, you can charge 60 and you're training three. And it's good for them because they're getting a cost, a cost reduction, and it's good for you because you're able to reach more people. So what I began to think was, well, okay, I can't exchange any more of my time for money because I was already maxed out in the amount of hours that I could afford, away from the kids and whatever. I had responsibilities at home. I was a full-time mom. So I thought, well, you know what? Everybody loves this detox yoga workshops, or this detox yoga. Perhaps I could create a workshop out of the detox yoga. Because I thought, I used to go to a lot of yoga workshops myself. And I thought, well, I know that this is interesting to people. I know people, really they love the detox yoga. How could I create an experience that is a workshop that people could come to? And how could I package it and sell it in such a way that would make it attractive? So I began to really dive deep into this and really look at, well, what could I sell that people want? Because there's things that people want, okay? People want to, they want to detox. Like women, especially, they're busy, right? They don't have a lot of time to, and also they want a quick fix. People want to come and they want a quick fix. So I packaged the detox yoga workshop. It was basically just a yoga workout, but of course we had homemade kombucha at the end. I did my detox bomb in the beginning. I did all different kinds of practices. Like I orchestrated all of the music. So it was really beautifully flowing. I did an incredible guided meditation at the end, a yoga nidra it's called, right? I led them through a journey and they left feeling completely and utterly rejuvenated. So I decided I would charge £30 for this workshop. I found a couple of yoga studios willing to rent me their space, and I sold out my first yoga workshop. I think we could fit in 40 people, and I think we fit in 40 people. So rather than charging £30 for 1 hour, I made £1,200 in profit, and it cost me very little to put the workshop on. So it was a 2-hour workshop. So instead of earning £30 an hour, I was now earning £600 per hour, simply because I had managed to find something that I could package into something that people wanted, that maximized on a skill that I have, and I over-delivered on value. So as the workshops grew and as they became more notorious, because let me tell you something, people will not come back to something that they either don't enjoy or doesn't get them a result. And they love the workshops. And I was always, putting my practices up online. And so I began to run the workshops, and I in the end, I was running 2 of them per month in David Lloyd, which is a gym close to us, and they can hold 60 people in the room. So I was holding 2 per month. That was 120 people coming through per month. And I was earning £3,600 per month from doing 4 hours work. 4 hours work, I was bringing in £3,600. That's about $4,000 in revenue. So that's what I mean by leverage. So whenever you're asking me, what is your advice? The question I'm answering is, what is the top advice for a newly qualified PT? I suppose I'm assuming when you're asking that you want to grow your business, you want to leverage your time, and you want to make more money. It's funny because I took my kids out for the day recently to a place called Portrush, and it's here in Northern Ireland, and they have like amusement parks and that kind of stuff. And I took them to Portrush. And whenever I was there, I took the day off work, to take them. And whenever I was there, I was sitting and I picked up my phone and I just went into my sales just to check my sales for the day. And so I checked in on my sales, and it had been a particularly good sales day. I think this was about 3:00 in the afternoon, and I think I had cleared about $9,000 and in that day. And my son looked at it and he said, "Mummy, oh my God, have you made $9,000 today?" And I said, yeah, that's what's come in through our recurring revenue and whatever sales we had made that day as well. And he was like, "Oh my goodness." And he said, "But Mummy," he said, "you haven't even been working today and you've earned that money." He said, "You don't ever need to work again, because I always thought that you needed to work to earn money, but you can earn money even when you're not working." And he's only 7, and it was really sweet. And I was like, so I started to explain to him about leverage. And I said, yeah, you're right. I cannot work at the minute the way my business is set up, and my business continues to make money. But, so I don't exchange my time for money anymore. Like I don't exchange 1 hour and get paid an X amount of money. But, if I invest that 1 hour into my business and create something like the 12-week shred or something, like the 18-month program, or I invest that in there, the leverage on my time now is enormous. And I think that's the point that many people miss, is how to leverage your time, but you have to set the foundation correctly first. You have to really, first of all, just to reiterate what we've been saying so far, is to get good at your craft. Get really, really, really good at your craft. Be someone that people look up to, that you have, show you have a massive amount of experience and a huge amount of confidence. Then you have to charge in advance, and you have to really value your time. So if people cancel, that's fine, but you already have their money in advance. And only people who truly value their time are happy to charge in advance. And they're happy to, for people not to show up. And they're like, yeah, take it or leave it. This is what I cost. This is what my time is worth. Take it or leave it. You have to grow a set of balls, really. You have to have a big set of kahunas in order to be this way. But then once that starts happening and you realize that people are still happy to pay it, that's whenever you can, and if you want to earn more money, you can increase your prices. Now you will have a slight drop off in clients, but that's okay because you're earning more money. So you have less clients, but you're earning more money. But, a PT at some point will reach burnout in their life. I know a lot of PTs that are working, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And yes, they're earning good money, but they're absolutely destroyed at the end of the week because they don't know how to leverage their time properly. And it's a lot of energy talking to people all day and training them all day, and listening to all of their shit and all of their problems, that they share with you. So, you have to really think about leveraging your time and scaling up. And that's one of the ways that you can scale up, is to think, how can I hone my craft? How can I take, what I am really passionate about and turn that into something that I can leverage somewhere, that I can hire, and how can I advertise, and how can I, take this further? We had online booking systems and that kind of stuff. We made it so easy for people. They could book using PayPal or they could book using a credit card. I hired someone to do my website and to set up. We used Acuity scheduling. So we're gonna link to all of these, all of the things I talk about in the show notes, by the way, in the podcast, whenever it's on the website. But Acuity scheduling is what we used to have people book into the workshops, and and everything just flowed, and so that was my income for a good while. 4 hours a month. I stopped teaching yoga privately completely, and I just did the workshops, and I was bringing in £3,600 per month for teaching 4 hours. So you have to look at how you can leverage your time. So the last thing that I want to talk about in my advice for a newly qualified PT is you want to really think about the bigger picture. You want to think about how you can leverage your time in such a way that you're not working with people one-to-one, or you're not working with people in person. So I don't do any personal training now, like none whatsoever. I'm not personal trainer. I don't do any yoga teaching, and I don't train anybody in the gym, simply because you couldn't pay me to teach you. You couldn't pay me to train you in the gym because of how much money my company makes. So if you want to earn, if you truly want to change your life, the only way to really change your life is to start to leverage your time by creating something online. And creating something. And so there's two different ways that you can create things online, but you have to think about it. You have to think about it very differently. And actually, just to go back to the PT, this will actually feed into it. So I'll just keep going. So what you really have to get really clear on whenever you're working with people is that you're not selling people a one-to-one PT session. You want to sell them a transformation. People don't buy. People always want a transformation. They want an end result. So what is the end result that you are promising people? And I see so many people, so many PTs missing out on so much. But do you want to know what I would do if I was a PT? Like if I tomorrow lost everything, lost the whole Sculpted Vegan company, and I had to become a PT, or I had to earn money as a PT, do you know what I would do? So I would find clients who wanted to come and train with me, and I would offer them a transformation program. So I would create a program that was very specific to a specific goal. So such as, say, the 12-week shred program. So recently I created a program called the 12-week shred. Okay. We launched the 12-week shred in June, and we started the competition at the end of July. And in the 6 weeks in between, we launched the 12-week shred program. We made $250,000. That's how much the 12-week shred made, $250,000 in 6 weeks, right? So using the same principle and I only share these numbers with you guys, not because I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm making $250,000 from one product. I share these numbers with you simply to show you what's possible, right? I'm just like a little mom of 4, 40-year-old mother of 4 living in Belfast in Northern Ireland, like literally the arsehole of nowhere. And I am sitting in my own office that used to be a bedroom. My whole team is all over the world. Like I don't have an office or a big fancy office. I just know how to leverage my time really well. So what I would do if I was PTing is I would take like the concept of the 12-week shred, and I would create a program such as the 12-week shred that really, really, really got results. How would I know it would get results? Because I would have tested it on myself at some point in the past, and I would have had the photographs to show it or to prove it. So I would then say to people, so I would put it out there and I would say, well, I'm a PT and I am looking for clients, and be very specific. I'm looking for 10 clients who want to do a 12-week shred, who want to get totally ripped, who want to do like a bodybuilder style shred, and they want to get totally ripped in 12 weeks. And even if it's coming up to Christmas or something, you can say it's 12 weeks until the 15th of December. I'm looking for 10 people who want to be ripped by the 15th of December. And I am offering a 12-week shred transformation program. And I would say then in this transformation program, here is what you get. So I would say you get, 2 personal training sessions per week or whatever. So, or 1 personal training session per week. So say 5 of them would come on a Monday and 5 of them would come on a Thursday. You would give them the option of 2 different times, and whoever got in first. And that's it. Once the slots are gone, they're gone. So you get 1 personal training session a week, but you get, in the times that you're not with me, you get a training program for the other 4 or 5 days. However, if you had them training 6 days a week, you would say you get a training program for the other 5 days. Now, if you wanted to go the extra mile, what I would do is I would record myself doing the exercises. So if it's a bench press, I record myself doing a bench press. I do a voiceover on, iMovie using my iPhone, and then I upload that to YouTube, and then I link that into the PDF. So even if you didn't want to go that far, you could just give them the training program. This is what I did in the beginning, and it just lists the exercise. But then whenever they're in with you for their induction session, you show them all of the exercises that are in, the program, and you get them to video you doing the exercises so they have them in their phone, right? So whenever they go do themselves. So basically, you're not just giving them a PT session, you're giving them a transformation program. You're giving them their macros. You're showing them how to work out their macros and their calories. You're giving them supplements, and you're giving them an exact food list, not even a food plan. You don't even have to give them a plan because they'll all be on different macros and calories, but you give them a food list, and you say you choose a very limited list, by the way. The more limited something is, the more people will bitch and whinge at you, but the more they will love you. The simpler you can make it for people, the better. So you create a transformation program, and you say to them, this is a 12-week program, and it costs £600. So it's either £200 per month or £199 per month for 3 months, or if you pay up front, you get £100 discount. You get it for £500. So there's some people who will be able to afford to pay up front, which is £500, and other people will pay the monthly, so you're getting £600. Now, if you bring in 5 of those, okay, so let's say everyone pays up front £500. So let's say you bring in 10. Let's say you fill up your quota. You're making £5,000 for 12 weeks work. And all you're doing is putting in a little bit of work to create the PDFs in the beginning, and you're working 2 hours a week. You're training 5 of them in one of the hours and 5 of them in the other hour. And you're making $5,000 for 3 months. Is it a little bit of extra work? Yes, but look at what the return is. And even if you didn't want to go that far and create like a transformation for people, if you're a PT, what I would say is give them something that they can purchase from you that they can do when they're not with you. A lot of people, do you know the reason why a lot of people stop going to PTs? Do you know why it is? Because they can only afford 1 session per week, or sometimes 2, and any PT worth their salt knows that you can't give someone a transformation in 1 or 2 sessions. They need to follow something consistently and persistently for a period of time. And if you give them a transformation, they will love you. So they can't afford to go any more than once a week. And if they go once a week, yes, they feel great for that hour, but pretty soon after maybe 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, they look at themselves in the mirror and they go, I don't look any different. What he's doing isn't working. And so they look around for someone who is actually going to solve their problem. Everybody wants a problem solved. That's why they go to a PT. And if you're not willing to solve their problem, then they're not going to stay with you. So what I would do if I was a PT, if I didn't even want to do something like the 12-week shred, is I would give them something they can purchase from me that they can do whenever they're not with me. So I would create a training program, and I would say to them, yes, you can come to me. It's £60 an hour, but if you purchase this training program from me and you pay me monthly, so I would always try and work out some kind of recurring monthly revenue payment. If you pay me £200 per month or $200 per month or whatever it is, I will work out your macros and calories for you, and I will give you a training plan that you can do in the other 4 days when you're not with me. And suddenly you haven't just given them an hour of your time, you've given them a transformation, you've given them a result. So they come to you and they check in with you with that training session, they're with you, and you maybe you measure them or you weigh them or whatever, you answer their questions about supplements, but you give them something else to do. I remember whenever a friend of mine first started training with the trainer a few years ago, and she said to me, yeah, it's great training with him, but I have no clue what to do when I'm not with him. So it seems like a waste of time because it's just like one session, and one session to do what? Like I could just do better myself. So if you kind of have to make yourself invaluable to people, but you have to give them a result. You have to give them an end transformation. And then those are the inroads into creating something bigger. And then the last point that I would give you is to record everything you do. Document everything you do. If you have proof, if you have social proof, if you are putting yourself out there and you're always posting on Instagram, even if nobody's watching. When I first started on Instagram, I had no followers and I still posted every day. As soon as stories come out, I posted on stories. I posted on my timeline. I posted really detailed, accounts of what I was doing. I didn't care that I didn't have anybody watching. I just documented everything I do. And the amount of people that actually still follow me, that followed me from the very, very beginning of my journey, and they've seen my entire transformation and they feel like they've been part of it. People want to be part of a transformation. And whenever you're posting up pictures of, look at, Carrie, look at, Claire, look at Emily, look at all these people, look at the transformations that they have made, and you're putting up their before and after pictures with their permission, of course, then people are like, oh, wow, this guy gets results. This guy gets results. This guy gets results. So you want to constantly document everything you do, put up pictures and videos of your own training, celebrate your clients, make them the hero of your story, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Last year in The Sculpted Vegan, we spent $1 million on advertising just on Facebook. $1 million on Facebook advertising. And do you know that a lot of it, obviously, I mean, we turned over a lot of money, so we didn't lose any money, but we also, what that $1 million did was it actually branded us. It put us very, very, very strongly as kind of the leading vegan online bodybuilding company. So yes, it was to make a lot of money, and we made about $2 million last year. So we're not, we were certainly quids in, but that's not the point. The point is people now, they see The Sculpted Vegan everywhere, right? They see us everywhere. And so when they see us everywhere, it's constantly being reinforced. Like Coca-Cola and Nike. And do you think Nike runs ads or sponsors massive like basketball players and all that kind of stuff to make money? They don't. It's all branding. It's reinforcing the brand. Like if you open Vogue or any of the big women's magazines, do you think that Louis Vuitton and Gucci and I can't even think any of the other big names. You can tell I'm not a label freak. But do you think that they advertise in those magazines to make money? They don't. They advertise in them for branding. That's all it is. It's for branding. So the more you can brand yourself, the more you can put yourself out there as the transformation guy, as the glute guy, as the quad guy, as the prep guy, as the Irish Hulk, as the sculpted vegan, the more you can put yourself out there and brand yourself and get yourself in front of people, the more you reinforce your brand. You have to get out of the mindset of, I'm putting myself out there to get more clients or to sell something, and put yourself into the mindset of, I'm putting myself out there to be seen. Because whenever people see The Sculpted Vegan, do you know what they think? Oh, there's The Sculpted Vegan. Oh, there's The Sculpted Vegan. Oh, there's The Sculpted Vegan. Now, if I'm in people's news feeds that much, do you know what their brain adds up? Their brain adds up and goes, there's The Sculpted Vegan. Sculpted Vegan spending money on advertising. Sculpted Vegan can only be spending money on advertising if Sculpted Vegan is making money. Sculpted Vegan can only be making money if their programs actually work. So guess who they go to whenever they want to get fit? So one day they go, you know what? I'm sick of looking like this. Totally fed up. I'm going to get fit. Who will I go to? Oh, Sculpted Vegan. It's like, it's a no-brainer. So I'm not advertising just to make money. I'm advertising to build a brand. But in the beginning, all I had was a shitty little Instagram account with nobody following me except my kids, my husband and my mother and, my close friends and family. And I just continue to put myself out there. You can't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? Because let me tell you, there will be somebody waiting to claw themselves up over you in order to put themselves out there and steal your clients. Truly, it is a dog eat dog world out there, and nobody is going to do it for you. You just have to put yourself out there and be willing to look like an asshole. Like, I swear to God, I was told that I looked like a dick so many times, and I'm sorry, my language is appalling, but I've just realized, I'm like, I don't care. This is my podcast and I can swear if I want. I have a mouth like a truck driver, and I make no apologies for it. But I was told so many times by people close to me that I just looked like a dick, and would I please stop what I was doing, and I was embarrassing and all of these horrible, hurtful things. And I just kept my eye on the ball, and I kept going because I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew how much money I wanted to make. And I ain't finished yet, people. Let me tell you, I ain't finished yet. Just you wait and see where we're going to go. So if you want to get into more of leverage and more into an online company, you have to start with these fundamentals. You have to start with really owning your worth and owning your value, and not being afraid to stand up and say, you have to pay me in advance, and this is what I cost. And if you don't want to work with me, these are my conditions. And if you don't, no problem. There's a PT over there who'd be willing to let you mess him around with the money and, only show up when it suits you, and pay him, every 4 weeks whenever, you hadn't spent all your money drinking on the weekend. He's happy to work that way. But me, I value my time. I value my family. I value the people that I care for with my money. And these are my terms. If you don't want to do them, you slide on, and people will respect you for it, and they will love you for it. So, and as long as you're getting them good results, then literally people will pay anything. So it's like my Sculpt and Shred program, my 18-month Sculpt and Shred program that is launching in October. It's $1,500, and people go, $1,500 for a program, and I'm like, yeah, but like if you want to look like a physique athlete, that's how long it's going to take, and that's how much it's going to cost. And last year we sold 1,600 programs, and it was only $1,000 last year. The price is rising in October. The price is rising whenever we relaunch in October. So and we sold 1,600 of them. So you do the math, it's like people are willing to pay it if it actually gets results, and it does. So anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I know it did go on really long, but whenever I saw this question, I was like, yes, this is something I'm really passionate about, and something I think that I can really help people with. But you have to get your foundation. You have to know your worth, and you have to not be afraid to charge what you're worth and ask for money up front, and, teach people how to treat you. Someone has written 160K. No, it's 1.6 million, actually. It's $1,000 program. We sold 1,600 of them. And sorry, I'm actually recording this live on Instagram. I forgot that I'm doing a podcast, and now I'm like chatting away to people on Instagram, and I'm like, people in the podcast are like, what's she talking about? What? Yeah. So I'm actually recording this live on Instagram, and someone commented it was 160,000. I'm like, no, it's 1.6 million. So I don't say that to brag. I say that to show you that I actually know what I'm talking about. So you can go and get advice from Joe Bloggs, Joe Bloggs, the heart surgeon, or Joe Bloggs, the trainer down the road, and he'll tell you how to run your business. Or you can come to me and I can tell you how to run your business, and I know who I would be going to for advice. That sounds very big-headed, but I don't mind. I think I've earned the right to be big-headed in this area because I think I've done pretty well. So guys, thank you so much for showing up. This was absolutely awesome. I would love it if you would leave me a review, for an iTunes review on this podcast. And I don't leave a shitty review, leave like a nice review. Don't be like, you suck, bitch. Because like I've been getting a lot of those recently, and I'm like, he must have a very small penis. No, I'm joking. But I've been getting a lot of men like giving me a real bashing recently. And I'm like, I don't know where these guys are coming from. These really mean fuckers are coming on and like literally calling me all the names of the day. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm lifting heavier than them and making more money than them. So that's all I can maybe think that it is. But anyway, come at me if you want. But like, if you're like, she talks shite and I really don't enjoy that podcast, then just slide on. Don't bother leaving a review. But see if you're like, yeah, do you know what? Quite enjoyed that. There was a bit of value in there. Feel free to share it with your friends, and also leave me a review, because I'm going to start doing shout outs on this podcast at the start. I'm going to start reading out the reviews. So the funnier you make the review, or the more gushing or the more wonderful you make your review, then you're more likely to have it read out on the Sculpted Vegan podcast. And this podcast is reaching 300,000 people currently, so which is all very exciting, and I'm absolutely loving doing it. So listen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. We have some incredible guests coming up in the future, and and I will see you next week for another episode of Strong and Sculpted. Take care. Bye for now.